The Silent Warrior in Court, the case that shook the city. The courtroom was unnaturally quiet. Every gaze was fixed on the frail woman standing before the judge's bench. Her white hair was neatly twisted into a bun, and time had carved deep lines across her face. She wore a simple dress patterned with delicate flowers, a beige cardigan hanging loosely from her narrow shoulders. Her fingers, thin and trembling, gripped the wooden podium as if it were the only thing tethering her to the earth. Her voice was soft when she spoke, but there was steel beneath it. Judge Vincent Alden leaned back in his high-backed chair. His expression was amused, a smirk tugging at one corner of his lips. He twirled his pen between two fingers, his tone condescending as he interrupted her. "Ms. Evelyn Mercer," he said, his voice laced with mockery. "Let's be honest. None of what you're saying makes much sense." There was a ripple of laughter from the gallery behind her. "Maybe," Alden continued, "your memory isn't what it used to be." Evelyn didn't move. She stood still, her face unreadable, her gaze focused on him with unsettling calm. The judge tapped his fingers against the bench, impatient. "I've got a tight schedule," he said. "Why don't we move things along? Perhaps someone should explain things to you in simpler terms. This is a courtroom, Ms. Mercer, not story time at the nursing home." More laughter. But Evelyn remained unmoved. Instead, she lifted her chin and exhaled slowly. "Your Honor," she said with quiet authority, "it seems you're under the impression that I'm lost. But I assure you, I know exactly where I am." From her handbag, she withdrew a folded document and set it neatly on the table before her. "You see, Judge Alden," she continued, "I'm not simply an old woman fumbling through her final years. I'm an attorney. I've practiced law for over 4 decades. And today, I stand here not just as a defendant, but as someone who knows exactly how this system works." The smirk on Alden's face evaporated. His fingers froze mid-tap. The murmurs from the gallery died in an instant. Her eyes, sharp and full of the wisdom of a life hard-fought, fixed on his. "Shall I proceed, Your Honor?" she asked. "Or would you like a moment to collect yourself?" For the first time in his long career, Judge Alden was speechless. The days before. 3 days earlier, the morning air had been brisk when Evelyn Mercer shuffled into the corner grocery store. Her steps weren't as quick as they once had been, but her mind was as sharp as ever. She methodically worked her way through the aisles, a head of lettuce, a quart of milk, a loaf of whole wheat bread. She was reaching for a jar of wildflower honey when a sharp voice cut through the air. "Ma'am, I told you, this coupon is expired. You can't use it." Evelyn turned her head toward the commotion. At the checkout counter, a middle-aged cashier was scowling at another elderly woman. The woman, about Evelyn's age, stood with slumped shoulders and shaking hands, holding out a crumpled coupon. Her cheeks were red with humiliation. "Please," the woman said quietly, "it's just $1 off. I didn't realize it expired." The cashier rolled his eyes. $1? If you can't afford that, maybe you shouldn't be shopping here." Evelyn's stomach clenched. She had seen cruelty in many forms over the years, and she recognized it now. She stepped forward, drawing a crisp dollar bill from her wallet. "Here," Evelyn said firmly, holding it out to the cashier. "Take this." The other woman turned to Evelyn, her eyes filling with gratitude. "Oh, thank you, dear," she murmured. "But you don't have to." "I want to," Evelyn interrupted, giving her a reassuring nod. The cashier grabbed the dollar with a huff and completed the transaction. The woman smiled at Evelyn as she gathered her things and walked away. Evelyn shook her head, watching her leave. People could be cruel for no reason at all. As Evelyn moved toward the door, she noticed a man in a dark suit standing near the entrance. His arms were crossed, his gaze following her closely. He didn't move, but his presence made her uneasy. Evelyn brushed it off and left the store. Later that evening, as she sat by the window sipping tea, headlights washed across the front of her house. A black car slowed to a stop. Evelyn rose from her chair and peered through the curtains. The same man from the store stepped out, walking purposefully up her driveway. He knocked once. Then again, louder. Evelyn took a breath, set down her tea, and went to the door. When she opened it, he was already reaching into his pocket. "Ms. Evelyn Mercer?" he asked with a polite but distant tone. "Yes. I'm Detective Cole Harris," he said, presenting a badge. Then he handed her an envelope. "You're being summoned to court. You've been charged with fraud." "Fraud." The word echoed in her head. "There must be some mistake," she said firmly. Detective Harris gave a slow, smug smile. "That's for the court to decide." He adjusted his tie. "You'll want to hire a good lawyer. Unless, of course, you're planning to represent yourself." Evelyn stared at the summons in her hand, her fingers tightening around the edges of the paper. I have no idea what I'm being accused of, she said through clenched teeth. The detective gave a small, amused shrug. See you in court, Ms. Mercer. Preparing for battle. That night, Evelyn sat at her kitchen table, reading the summons under the yellow glow of the pendant light. The charges were serious. Allegations of a fraudulent bank account, one she had never opened, used to funnel money from stolen pensions. Someone was framing her. She had spent decades fighting for justice, defending the innocent, and standing against corruption. And now, someone was trying to destroy her name. But they had underestimated her. They had mistaken quiet for weakness. And that was a mistake Evelyn Mercer never allowed in court. The next morning, Evelyn dressed as she had 1,000 times before trial. Navy blue dress, tailored blazer. She stood in front of her mirror for a long time, staring at the reflection of a woman many had already counted out. They were wrong. Entering the courtroom. The courthouse was cold, heavy with polished stone and wood, the air thick with old paper and tension. Evelyn arrived early, requesting the case files from the clerk. As the young woman behind the desk typed in her information, her expression shifted from indifferent to uncomfortable. Ms. Mercer, the clerk said quietly, your case is criminal, not civil. Evelyn's stomach dropped. And the prosecutor, she asked, though she already suspected. District Attorney Colin Gregson, the clerk confirmed. Gregson was ruthless, ambitious. And if he had taken this case himself, it meant one thing. Someone powerful wanted her silenced. Later, as she reviewed the files in the quiet corner of the courtroom, Gregson himself approached. Well, he said smoothly. Evelyn Mercer. I didn't think I'd see you here again, at least not on this side of the law. Evelyn stood slowly, her gaze unwavering. Don't get comfortable, she said. I'm just passing through. Gregson's smile thinned. You should take the deal, he said. Plead guilty. Save yourself the humiliation. No, Evelyn said simply. Gregson studied her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away. The trial. The courtroom was filled with spectators. Former colleagues, curious onlookers, reporters. Judge Vincent Alden presided with casual arrogance. Ms. Mercer, he said. Do you have an attorney? I do, Evelyn answered. Who is representing you? Evelyn lifted her chin. I am. A hush fell over the room. Gregson smirked as he rose to present his case. For 2 years, he claimed, Evelyn had operated a secret account. He laid out evidence, bank statements, testimonies, electronic trails. But there were no victims present. No one claiming she had stolen from them. Evelyn pointed this out. Where's the victim? She asked the jury. In any fraud case, there is someone who has been harmed. Who is it here? No one answered. Then she presented her evidence. Bank records proving she had no access to the fraudulent accounts. Security footage from the bank showing a man, Gregson's associate, opening the accounts in her name. Phone logs tying Gregson directly to the scheme. The courtroom turned. Gregson turned pale. And then Judge Alden's own name appeared on the documents Evelyn had received the night before. He was part of it. The fall. The courtroom erupted. Officers arrested Gregson on the spot. Alden was removed from the bench days later, pending a federal investigation. Evelyn stood victorious, but wary. She knew this wasn't the end. Her friend, retired private investigator Sam Carter, confirmed as much. There's more, Sam said. Gregson and Alden weren't working alone. And there was another player, Victor Langston. Victor had once been Evelyn's ally. Now, he offered her a flash drive. Carter's running an entire network, Victor said. You need to blow it up. Evelyn and Sam worked with journalist Daniel Shaw to expose the conspiracy. But Judge Alden wasn't finished. He sent men after her. They ran. They fought. They survived. And when the evidence went public, Alden's empire crumbled overnight. But Evelyn Mercer wasn't done. As the headlines exploded, Sam asked, "What now?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "We keep going. Because some wars never end." And Evelyn Mercer had never been one to leave a fight unfinished.